we've got the latest camera rankings for the first half of December, with both Canon, Sony, and Nikon posting surprising results. Will this make Canon and Sony customers happy as they battle it out for market dominance? And what happened to Panasonic and Nikon? I'll answer each of these questions in this video. But first, I have a simple request. Please subscribe to this channel. It doesn't cost you anything, helps this channel grow, and keeps you up to date on the latest camera gear. We'll get to the camera rankings in just a moment, but with today being Christmas Eve and all the excitement that brings, I want to first of all wish you a happy and Merry Christmas, but also a safe one. In fact, I can already smell the turkey cooking in the oven. This time of year allows us to sit back and focus on what really matters. No, Ryan, I'm not talking about what's coming in terms of camera rumors for 2025. However, it's time to turn our attention to which camera company dominated the first half of December at Yodobashi in Japan. And I get it, while the Japanese market doesn't completely reflect our market, it is after all filled with people who love cameras like we do. And while there's certainly some debate as to whether the Canon EOS R5 Mark II is a wow camera or not, I gotta say that from my viewpoint in shooting video as a videographer, that I'm wowed. It's really impressive. And I gotta say, Canon Log 2 and waveforms, I wish we had it in the Mark I. Now I understand why everybody was so clamoring to get Canon Log 2. Announced in July, the Canon R5 II performed very well, selling in large numbers around the world, so it's really no surprise that this camera came in first place. It delivers a new 45 megapixel stacked sensor, a new digic accelerator chip and AI processing chip, allowing it to track subjects with greater accuracy and in challenging situations. Then there's waveforms and Canon Log for those video shooters. I'll be the first to admit that this isn't an impressive shot. What's impressive, though, is the dynamic range. Despite shooting into the sun, the bright snow isn't overexposed, allowing me to preserve detail in the shadows and the midtones in a very challenging situation. And this tree, still hanging onto its leaves, is perfectly exposed while the details of the bright snow aren't lost. And the biggest benefit to waveforms is no longer wondering if we've got things properly exposed or not. It's truly an incredible tool, coupled with Canon Log 2. I'm just absolutely amazed by this thing. And one thing is, if you do have the R5 II and you're getting started with video, the key thing when shooting with Canon Log 2 is to raise the highlights right up until where they're kissing, where it would clip, and not going any further. And then in post, as we bring things down, it just produces really incredible results. Nothing's clipped in the highlights, and the shadows, the detail in the shadows is preserved, giving us just absolutely incredible results. I'm really, I'm just absolutely gobsmacked by the step up in video capabilities I can do with the Canon EOS R5 Mark II. I'm sure the stack sensor has something to do with it, but I really have to say it's the ability to shoot with Canon Log 2 and having waveforms that has really changed how I shoot. And now when I shoot with the Canon EOS R5, the Mark I, which is what I'm using for this video, it just seems like it's 10 years old, although it does these videos quite well, doesn't it? So it's no surprise that the R5 II is in first place. But second place will surely surprise because it's the Canon EOS R1, announced alongside the Canon EOS R5 II, a camera that has no trouble in extreme environments. Joshua Halku was recently in Antarctica and got some really incredible shots. It's a good camera. I mean, it's a very good camera. It's a flagship camera. It's not for everybody, but for those of you out there that are professional photographers that shoot with this camera, that shoot with the R3, that shoot with the Sony Alpha 1, the Nikon Z9, you understand who these cameras are made for. But what I'm trying to get to show up in second place with a price of $62.99, that's pretty bold and impressive, because we've got an awful lot of other cameras that are in the top 10 that you would expect to be able to sell in larger quantities than the Canon EOS R1. So, showing up in second place, that is impressive for a camera of this caliber. And what we have right out of the gate is Canon dominating essentially the top three, with two cameras in the top three, But now we're going to go ahead and talk about a different camera, and that's the Sony a7C II. Now this camera shows up in 3rd and 6th place. You might be wondering, well, why on earth is it showing up in 2 places? Well, because what we're dealing with here is Yodobashi reporting the top 10 camera SKUs in the top 10. And obviously, if you go out and buy a camera and you go out and buy the A7C, you get it in a box. If you buy it with a kit package, it comes in a different box with a different SKU. So essentially, we're talking about the top 9 here. And if we add the 3rd and 6th place together, we might find that it goes up to even 2nd or 1st place, or maybe stays in 3rd place, because we don't know the numbers behind all the cameras in the top 10. All right, so we've covered off the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 6th place. It's now time to turn our attention to the 4th place. And it's another Sony. The Sony a9 II was announced in October, but it's already posting big numbers as it appears here in 4th place. Are you noticing the trend here that we're seeing a lot of high-end, very expensive cameras high up in the top 10 at Yodobashi? I want to tell you something. I've been covering Yodobashi's top 10 for, I don't know how many years now, but one thing Yodobashi's gotten a bit of a reputation for is posting the top 10 figures for a lot of high-end cameras. They seem to attract a lot of people looking to buy expensive cameras. The R5 II in 1st place, $42.99. We've got the Canon EOS R1 at $62.99, and the Sony Alpha 1 Mark II is $64.99, I believe, or right around that price point. So we've got another very expensive camera in the number 4 spot. So looking at the top 10 now, well, what do we see? Well, we see Canon dominating the top 2 spots, but we see Sony with a few more cameras. Although again, in my world, I'm gonna see the a7C II as really 1 camera instead of 2, but if you're taking count, Sony's got a slight edge on Canon, but Canon holds those numbers 1 and 2 spots. Well, why don't we go down the list a little further, because it is going to become clear who dominates the top 10 and who doesn't. In 5th place, we have the only Nikon in the top 10, and that's the recently announced Nikon Z50, the Mark II in kit package with 2 zoom lenses. Although if you're a Nikon customer, you might be a little bit surprised that after being out in the market for a couple of months, we don't see the Nikon Z6 Mark III. And that despite seeing that, well, it's on sale with holiday savings of $300 off. And despite holiday savings on the Nikon Z8 and Nikon Z9, yeah, I am kind of surprised that we only see one Nikon camera in the top 10. So looking at market dominance, we can see right now that we got 2 Canon cameras and we have 2 Sony cameras in the top 10. Yes, I know, 3 SKUs for Sony. So if you're a Sony customer, you can go ahead and say, you know what? We Sony customers have kind of the lead right now with 3 SKUs in the top 10. And of course, if you're a Canon customer, you can say, yes, we only have 2 cameras out of the 3 SKUs, but we dominate the most important spots on the top 10. But now it's time to turn our attention to the only Fujifilm camera in the top 10, and that's the Fujifilm X-M5. It shows up in 7th place with the XC 15 to 45mm f3.5 to 5.6. So for those of you that are challenged in counting to 10, we have 7 cameras accounted for and 3 positions to go. Next is 8th place. Can you guess whether we have a Canon or a Sony showing up in 8th place? And can you guess which camera it is? Let me just give you a moment. Ryan, let's give them, 5 seconds. All right. I know it's not 5 seconds yet. Okay. It is a Sony, and it really shouldn't be a surprise as to which Sony is showing up in 8th place. I would expect this camera to actually show up much further in the list and see cameras like the R1 and the Alpha 1 Mark II come down a little further in the list. And that's a Sony ZV-E10, the Mark II, and it's with a double lens zoom kit. It's one of those cameras that's really perfect for vlogging if you're showing houses, if you're a teenager, if you don't want to have to worry about carting around a really heavy piece of kit like this. I love the R5 Mark II, but it's some serious weight here. You need to have some upper body strength to be able to shoot with this hours and hours a day, day in, day out. I love it, but the Sony ZV-E10, it's a terrific camera. I think it's terrific. I think it's well-deserved, and it's got some good competition, such as the Canon EOS R50. I love that camera too, but when it comes to the marketplace, it seems like Sony's got the win with the ZV-E10 and the ZV-E10 Mark II, showing up in 8th place. And of course, in 10th place, we do have a Canon camera, and it is the ZV-E10. It is the Canon EOS R50. And is it a kit package? Yes, so that's interesting to see. We see both the Sony ZV-E10 and the R50 both in the kit packages for the double lens zoom kit. Okay, so let's take a look at the numbers here. So that's 1, 2, 3 Canon cameras, 1, 2, 3 Sony cameras, 4 if we include the A7C II being double counted. So, take a wild guess as to which camera is in 9th place. Whoever wins this, if it's a Canon or Sony, pretty well allows them to dominate the top 10. Or could it be a Panasonic? Well, let me just first of all break the news. Panasonic customers, focus on the turkey, the cranberry sauce, the gravy, the potatoes, roast potatoes, and your favorite vegetables that you're going to be having today, because you're not going to see your camera in the top 10, unfortunately. No Pentax either, and no OM systems. So that means that Canon actually dominates the top 10 for the first time in a long time, with, of all cameras, the Canon EOS R6 Mark II. And is it a body alone? Yeah, body alone, no kit package. The Canon EOS R6 Mark II. So again, I know Sony customers, because you've got that A7C II, you can say, well, we've got more cameras. And again, let's count them out. So we've got the Sony A7C in 3rd place, as well as 6th place. Then we have the ZV-E10 in 8th place. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 cameras. Well, it's actually 3 cameras with 4 SKUs. So how about that? We've got 3 cameras that are Sony in the top 10. And with Canon, we have 4 cameras taking the number 1 spot, the number 2 spot, as well as the 9th and 10th spot. And I'm going to give this one to Canon. I think Canon clearly dominates the top 10. Not only do they have more cameras in the top 10 than Sony, but they're dominating that number 1 and 2 spot. And a lot of times what we see in sales is we tend to see a little bit of a hockey stick when we get to those top spots. 2024 was an interesting year. We were supposed to get an awful lot of big cameras announced early on in the first half, and it just didn't happen. We were supposed to see the Canon EOS R1 and R2 in the first quarter being announced right around CP+, then May, and it didn't happen until the third quarter in July the 17th, or on July the 17th. And the R1 actually didn't start shipping until the middle of last month. Then we have Panasonic. We were supposed to be getting an announcement back in 2022 of a refresh of the S series. Didn't happen. Now, it's over 6 years and still nothing. It's not even much of a prediction anymore. Everyone's pretty well realizing, look, if they don't do something in the first half, it's not looking good. But we have 3 cameras registered. One was just recently registered last week, so it's a pretty foregone conclusion that what is in need of a refresh in Panasonic's lineup is clearly the Lumix S series lineup with the S1, S1R, and S1H, and in a real need of a refresh. I mean, come on. It's going to be 6.5 years by the time we get any sort of announcement. So we're really due there, and that's something I was really hoping to see in the first half of this year. Canon didn't disappoint with several cameras being announced, along with a couple of cinema cameras, the C400 and the C80, a follow-up to the C70. And Sony, well, we got that Sony Alpha 1 Mark II. And of course, the A9 III started shipping. It was announced last year, but started shipping this year. And of course, the ZV-E10 Mark II. A good solid refresh on Sony's part. Nikon, well, I think Nikon is getting ready to really surprise us in 2025. Yes, we got some camera announcements in 2024. The Z6 Mark III, essentially best in class. The Z50 Mark II. But it's the potential refresh of the Nikon Z9 that's got everybody really excited about. I put out a video yesterday talking about some information that a source brought to me that, well, it seems pretty realistic. It helps kind of set the scene as to what could happen in 2025, and nobody else has really given us anything, so that's kind of our baseline for now. What about the Z8? Well, if we look at history, the Z8, the Mark I, was announced 1 year after the Z9, and being very close in capabilities, I wouldn't expect to see the Nikon Z8 Mark II until, well, probably 2026. But all that being said, it's making 2025 already looked to be a rather impressive year. However, let's kind of take a deep breath and let's not focus on all the great new cameras that can pull money out of our pockets. Let's really focus right now, the best deals of the year. I told everybody the best deals of the year, Black Friday and onwards, and that's what we're seeing right now. Let me remind you of just a couple of them. The Canon EOS R6 II has been $500 off for several months as we await a refresh in Q1. The Nikon Z8, also $500 off, as is the Nikon Z9. The Sony a7S III is $300 off, the a7 IV, $400 off, and the a7R5, $500 off. And if you're interested in taking advantage of these sales, as well as 20 to 30 other sales I have listed separately in the description down below, you can use these links here to take you to the site and pick whatever camera you want. And I'd appreciate it if you did so, because by doing so, you're literally helping to support this channel to keep the lights on, and it's very much appreciated. Every day somebody comes to me at least once a day with a sponsorship or a collaboration that would put something like a 30 to 90 second video at the, well, no, video, it's a film, a clip inside as a sponsorship. And I don't want to do that. I mean, already I appreciate that you're watching to the end, that you're going through maybe 1 or 2 YouTube ads. And thank you, because I do get some income from that as well. But for those of you that pay to not watch those ads or then be forced to watch a 30 to 60 second ad, I don't think that's cool. And I have a way of avoiding that by talking about my affiliate links. And if you guys use these links, it really does help support the channel where I don't have to use sponsorships. And I think that's a far better way of doing it. I do it at the end of the video. And these sales are always content related. They're related to what we're talking about, and it's of something that might be of interest to you. And even if you're not interested in the cameras that I talked about or the lenses, and you're not looking at buying anything, it's still market news. We're seeing some really incredible sales. And I want to thank everybody that over 2024 that has used my affiliate links, my smart pre-order links. Thank you. You've helped make this the best year ever. And I have no plans of going anywhere. I'm going to be here strong in 2025. And I initially had a vision of this being my retirement gig, what I will do in retirement when I retire sometime in the next 3 to 6 years. And I see no reason to change that. In fact, I'm doubling down on it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have yourself a very happy Christmas as we approach Christmas Eve, or as we approach Christmas Day. It's already Christmas Eve. Thank you so much. Have yourself a great, safe, and happy holiday with your family. And let me know if somebody got you anything, not if you bought yourself anything, if somebody got you anything for Christmas related to camera gear. I'd really like to know what was under the Christmas tree for you. But now I'm going to stop talking and let you enjoy your Christmas. Cheers. Have a good one. Happy New Year. And we'll see you again soon, very soon.